Are you a parent navigating the complexities of co-parenting, family court, or even domestic violence? If you are looking for ways to help protect your children and build a strong and supportive community around you, then look no further. Gray Minds Think Alike is your go-to resource for everything related to the complexities of family life. Join us as we dive into thoughtful conversations with experts and explore practical tips and strategies for tackling the challenges of parenthood in the throes of adversity so that no parent feels alone and every child's safety is protected. Hi there, and welcome to Gray Minds Think Alike. Today in our virtual studio, we have Sheri Kurdakul, the founder and CEO of Victim's Voice, a new app that helps domestic violence victims collect and store legal, court-admissible evidence. Sheri's main focus is on making a measurable difference in the lives of victims and survivors so their abusers can be held accountable and they can begin to reclaim and rebuild their lives in safety and on their own terms. Hi, Sheri. Thank you for being with us today. It's nice to speak with you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I would love for you to just begin with telling the listeners about your background and how Victim's Voice began.
It's an interesting story. So many people who start nonprofits or businesses in this area. I too am a survivor. I'm a survivor of child sexual assault, child abuse, domestic violence, adult sexual assault. But I'm also a survivor of criminal, civil, and multiple family courts. The tool itself, Victim's Voice, started when my daughter was 10 years old, my youngest daughter. She came home from school one day telling me that a friend of hers had been getting picked on. And so the friend went through the normal channels that they're always told to do, tell the teacher. And then she told the teacher nothing really happened. So she told the guidance counselor, and then word got out that she was telling. So the abuse got more intense. And my daughter came home and said, I wish there were a way that she could report it privately. I wish there were a mobile app. So me being the mother that I am, I looked at her and said, then build one. So she proceeded to go in her room and for hours did hour of code, learned the basic principles of coding, and then used a coding platform to build a
How old was she?
She was 10. So
most people can't even code as adults. So that's commendable right there.
I think they come out of the womb coding these days.
That's true.
So she built it for a science fair project. And of course, won elementary division, won all kinds of communications awards. We were invited out on the West Coast to speak at a developers conference. We're located on the East Coast. And she's very much an introvert. So after all the attention, she was on radio shows, she was in newspapers, all kinds of stuff. When we were speaking at the developers conference, there were a lot of Q&A after the session about other applications. And that's really when the light bulb went off for me. I had worked in tech spaces, always in marketing departments, but I never really put two and two together. I worked with enterprise technology, and being a survivor working with technology, it just really never occurred to me to put the two together until this happened. And that's really where Victim's Voice was born. Her app was called the Zebra app. It was an acronym for Zoe Ending Barriers in Reporting Adversity. And the only thing she said to me was, you can use whatever you want. You just can't use my name. So we dropped the Z off, and that's where Abinra comes from. It's a nod to her. So Abinra is our corporate name.
That's incredible. Like I said, most 10-year-olds that I've been encountered with are watching YouTube.
Yeah.
So that's great. I'm just curious, how old is she today?
She's 19. She's a freshman in college.
Oh, wow. What is she majoring in?
Fine art.
Okay.
Not technology.
Not technology.
That it did have a major impact on how she relates to people and relationships. She had another situation in middle school come up where there was a girl who was very abusive in a friend relationship and started going through that classic wheel of abuse. And when she saw that wheel on my desk and she's looking at it, she says to me, oh my God, this is exactly what she's doing to me, and ended the relationship immediately immediately. So being involved in this has definitely had an impact in how she looks at relationships and how she deals with things like that.
That's great because she learned life skills. And I hope she got an A.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so this is all fascinating to me. I've always been in technology. I do digital marketing. Who is the demographic of Victim's Voice? Who should use it? And we'll go from there.
Ideally, it's anyone 13 and older who is in a relationship that something feels off. It doesn't feel right, but you may not be able to put a name to it yet. That's really the ideal time to start documenting, because as we know, abuse cycles, you start to doubt yourself, you start to make the excuses, you start to cover up for the abuser. You're not quite sure if it qualifies for abuse. It's that real gray area until things start to escalate so much that by the time you realize that you're really in trouble, all this historical information has already happened, but you have no record of it.
Right.
So we always tell people, if you're feeling uncomfortable about what's going on, it never hurts to document. And that goes to our tagline of legally admissible documentation really doesn't matter until it does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wrote down everything. I documented everything. And when I look back on it, some of them just seem like silly comments. But when you, like you said, look at the grand scheme of them all, you really see a pattern of an escalation. Maybe someone being 5 minutes late one day didn't seem like much, but when you see the pattern built off, all the evidence, it really does.
And we see this particularly when people are trying to get their first protective order.
Right.
Oftentimes that one single incident out of context doesn't rise to the level of getting a permanent restraining order. So you'll get the initial because they give you the benefit of the doubt, right? They give you that protective order until you have that hearing. But then when you have the hearing, then your abuser has the opportunity to come and speak up as well. And so that one incident may seem silly in the eyes of others out of context. But if you have all the recorded context of everything that's happened that's led up to that one incident, then it makes sense. Then you see where the real danger is. Yeah.
Okay. How does it work? So what are the steps involved? Okay. You download it or you get an activation code. What does one do from there?
So there's nothing to download. We call it an app, but it's not actually an app like you would think of one. If you download something, there is a financial trail, right? Even if it's a free app, there's a financial trail that says, oh, you've downloaded this free app. So we have nothing to download. The other reason is because not everyone has access to a smart device, or their smart devices are being tracked. So ours is a web-based app, meaning that you can use any system that can connect to the internet to access your account. And so you can use a workplace computer, you can use a school computer. You're not violating any computer usage policies because we're not downloading and storing any information on any local device. So someone can gain an annual subscription either by purchasing their own, or they can go to any of our partner members and get one for free. And if they go to a partner member listed on our website, those partner members are obligated to give away a license for free. That license then opens up the ability to document all of your evidence. So it walks you through a series of pre-vetted guided questions. Okay. I say pre-vetted because we have run them through the gamut of prosecutors and judges and law enforcement, victim advocates, social workers, you name it. They've reviewed it and given their feedback to make sure that the questions are worded in such a way that someone who English is not their first native language, they may be highly uneducated, they may have some developmental disabilities, they can still understand the question being asked. If they have sight issues, the screen readers can read it, so it's ADA compliant, and they can answer the questions. We allow for image uploads and document uploads. And our biggest complaint by far is you don't allow me to upload audio or video. No, we don't.
So no audio, no video.
No.
Okay. What is the reason for that? Just so I know.
So we're located in Pennsylvania. We're a one-party consent state. So as long as you're part of the conversation, it's legal to record someone. Our neighboring state, which happens to be about 10 minutes down the road from me, which is Pennsylvania, is an all-party consent state. And many states in the U.S. are all-party consent states. Pennsylvania, it is a felony offense to record without expressed consent of every incident where you're recording. I don't know any abusers who are going to give expressed consent.
So you would have to say, I am recording, I am filming.
And that can be dangerous. So what we advise people is if you have a recording that has been legally obtained, then you can document that you have that recording and where that recording is stored. So that links where that information is to everything else that you're already documenting.
Okay. Now, what exactly are they documenting? Are they just keeping notes of what incidents or what are they looking for?
I, like everyone else, documented everything that was happening to me. Unfortunately, most of the time when you're in the thick of it, you're documenting from an emotional perspective and you're not stopping to think, and you probably don't know all the laws involved. So you're not thinking, oh, I should document this or I should document that. So if someone puts their hands around your neck and cuts off your blood flow or your oxygen flow, and maybe you pass out and you come to, you may not think to document that you have been a recipient of non-fatal strangulation attempt or non-fatal strangulation. So if an abuser comes in and kicks the dog on his way to slapping you around, and I use he just in a general sense, I'm not singling anyone out, but if an abuser comes in and kicks the dog on the way to knocking you around, you're not going to think to document that the dog was abused as well. If you're thrown down the stairs and you have to go to the doctor because you banged your head up really bad, you may go to the doctor and tell the doctor that you slipped and fell in the bathtub because you're fearful of what may happen if you disclose to the doctor. But if you document in the app what happened and you told the doctor this because you were fearful, now if it ever gets into a hearing situation or a disclosure situation, now when you go to the doctor and the doctor records slip and fell in the bathtub, but you're saying, oh, he pushed me down the stairs, there's a discrepancy. And that's pretty much going to get thrown out. But now you have the description documented that this is why I told the doctor what I told them. And this is why I'm disclosing what happened now in this hearing situation.
Gotcha.
So we're helping them document things like weapons. Most people think of weapons as guns or knives. They don't think that a hairbrush can be a weapon. So we guide them through the questions of information that need to be captured. And then if they're also uploading images of a broken glass table, but there's no pictures of any bruises or anything like that, they can show that there was a violent scene. We're geolocating, date and time stamping every entry so that each incident that happens, they're documenting all these incidences. And then we can also gather the metadata or that technical information from the device that they're recording it on, as well as the geolocation, date and time stamp. So we can verify the timelines and they are where they say they are.
Wow, that's powerful. So images are okay, just no audio or video. Okay.
What we see from usage type that comes in, we don't know who our users are. You could be a user on my tool and I would have no idea. And I'm the CEO of the company. But we do see that entries are being made, what state the entries are coming from, and we see whether or not images are uploaded. We don't see what those images are because those images are encrypted, but we see the type of files going in. Was it a PDF? Was it a document? Was it an image file? And I can tell you that there are huge amounts of images being uploaded. That's most of the bulk of our server space is images. Yeah.
They say a picture says 1,000 words, and that is definitely true. It's definitely proof.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you keep, if people are coming from different states, how do you keep track of what laws apply for each state?
That was the $20,000 question, right? When we built this, We had to go through all of the state laws, all of the federal laws, all of the regulations, even for data storage, data compliance, privacy, chain of custody laws, you name it, we went through it. And that's primarily what took me 3 years of building up until we actually launched even the first version of our app.
When was that launched?
June of 2019.
19.
Yeah.
So it's been now almost 5 years?
Yeah, we formed the company in 2018. So we celebrated our 6-year anniversary back in June, and we're coming around on year 7. So,
oh, wow. It's great. Okay. So you have factored in each state laws. What are the rules of evidence as it applies and what is admissible? We said images, notes. Are people just keeping a journal? Does the app itself or the program feature like a notebook where they can just type in different things?
Like I said, it walks them through a series of questions. So in the beginning, yes, they can journal because it's important to see their emotional state. It's important to get their side of the story. But then we walk them through things like, what type of incident was this? Was it a sexual, physical, emotional? Was religion involved? Were there multiple perpetrators, multiple victims? All kinds of questions. And then for each question, then we give them the opportunity to explain in detail in their own words. So we're getting the quantitative and qualitative information.
Okay. So after a user documents and reports incidents, fills out questions, where does the info go exactly?
It is stored in our own private servers that are isolated from anything else. So the URL that the app resides on is not a BINRA. It's not victim's voice. It's something very nondescript. We partner with other organizations, but we do not partner from a technology perspective where anyone else's system plugs into ours because that creates a weak spot. So any kind of technology partnerships are referral based because we cannot have those connections. Then we can't control the security. All of the information is encrypted. As this information comes in, it's encrypted and stored. It is not stored in one central location. Okay. And we even went as far as the code that our systems are built in, the code itself is encrypted. So even though we're in cloud servers and everybody uses some type of server, whether it's AWS or Azure or whatever, there are instances where executives, top level people in those companies who have access to server space can be abusers. So we even thought from that perspective of what if the cloud service that we use, there's someone really high up that wants to gain access to our system. And that's why we have everything decentralized. We have everything totally encrypted to ensure the safety and security and then monitoring all the time. Because we have to be able to certify, and we do certify to the courts, chain of custody of all that data. We have to be able to back that up from a technology perspective to say that we can show when this information, the device that it came in on, how it came through our servers, and it has not been tampered with in any way, shape, or form at all through the duration of its life cycle.
That makes sense. Now, who is actually monitoring this? Where is this information going to? What type of people?
Everything's in-house.
They're in-house.
And a lot of that is proprietary information that we just don't disclose.
Okay. What are their backgrounds? Are they lawyers?
We have lawyers. We have IT security people. We have had former government officials that data analysis, data forensics, all of that go through the systems, making sure that everything is tightened down. Our security advisor is also overseas. So even things like GDPR and ISO compliance. So all of that is covered. Yes.
Gotcha. And then do you guys report to the police or authorities from there, or how does that work?
No. So first of all, we don't know who our users are. And we do that intentionally because what happens if we get subpoenaed and then we're forced to relinquish information where it may not be safe for that survivor to put that information out there. Also, FIPSA rules are very clear. If an organization receives VOCA funds, which we don't, but a lot of our partner members do, then the FIPSA rules state that any survivor information that's being released must be released to a specific person for a specific reason with the survivor's expressed consent for a reasonable amount of time. So our system only allows a report and the files to be generated if the user themselves goes into the system and designates what we call a records recipient. So in essence, the survivor is going in, the user is going in and saying, I want these records to go to this individual. And then that individual would set up a light account, which is free, on our system, Victim's Voice. And that light account gets linked to their account so that they can access the report and the files.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. So it's very elaborate. So that's great.
Yeah.
Think of everything. Now, what happens if an abuser has access to the victim's phone or computer?
So let's say because we're not downloading anything, right? First of all, they would have to know the URL to even access the app. So let's say that they do know the URL. And let's say that
it's not on a browser history.
No, they can clear the browser history. So let's say that they do find the URL, and let's say that they do know what the username and password is. All of our information is a one-way door, meaning that once the information goes in, no one can access that information again. No one can see it. If the abuser got in, the abuser would have to have a safe word in order to access the ability to generate a records recipient. So they couldn't go in and assign themselves as a records recipient to get a copy of the report. We also built in safety. So what if the user needs to get in touch with us? They're having a technical issue. They need a safe word to go into their in-mail system. Their in-mail system allows them to communicate with us without disclosing who they are, because we just see that a user has asked this question. Our customer support team then responds to that question and hits send, and it goes back into that user's in-mail system. At no time is their identity ever disclosed.
Got it.
So yeah, we also have, unfortunately, it's all too common where victims don't make it out. And whether it's through death, medical incapacitation, or oftentimes in the case of Native Americans, missing and murder, officially missing.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that the victim's evidence could be heard even in those cases. So the user at any time can establish what we call a journal designee. And
Gotcha.
A journal designee is a trusted individual that in the event of one of those three cases, the journal designee can then request authority to assign a records recipient on behalf of the user. So the journal designee's light account is linked. They don't have access to the user's account, but their own account is linked to the user's account. And they would need to upload some official documentation for our company to review and authenticate. And then we turn on the ability for them to assign a records recipient. So even
so that helps
death,
with accountability and justice after the fact.
Yes. So if a victim is murdered, then, and they've assigned a journal designee, then, or even missing, that journal designee can assign a records recipient, and all of that victim's evidence that's been documented can report, and all their files can be generated.
Will they be notified that they have this? Like if they're the beneficiary of the account?
Yeah, if they're the journal designee. So let's say I'm the user of an account and you're my best friend. I would let you know that I'm going to assign you. You would get an email from our company saying you need to sign up your account or log in if you already have one. You have a set time frame, and then you have to electronically sign a durable power of attorney that authorizes you to request access should something happen to me. And if you're my trusted individual, you're going to know if something's happened to me.
Of course. Yeah. I just wasn't sure if it was like someone lists someone and they don't know, and then someone dies, and then how would the mother know that existed? But if they're going to get an email, then I guess they will.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning that victims could get this either you can get an organization to become a partner, and you can get it donated through the organization. I'm assuming like a nonprofit.
Nonprofits, we have prosecutors' offices. Some places call them district attorneys' offices. We have law enforcement. The latest law enforcement agency that just signed up was Kansas City, Missouri. Okay. We have, yes, you're right, nonprofit. We have medical facilities, so nurses.
Oh, smart.
We have...
So someone from these organizations someone would come to them and say, I need help. I'm a victim. And they'd say, here's a license. You can get activation. You can log in and then start putting in all of your logs, your evidence from there.
Exactly. And the partner member is trained. So we do an onboarding session and we train them how to onboard new users so they can sit with them and show them how to get up on the app, make sure they can access it, make sure they understand, they know what the URL is. And we give them all kinds of marketing collateral and give them opportunities for nonprofits to even fundraise to get licenses themselves for free. Yeah.
No, that's great. I'm thinking like how I can help with my organization, all the victims that are suffering. And I know we all have documented everything because that's what our lawyers say to do. They're like, write it down, document everything and try to get as much evidence as possible. But it's hard sometimes, especially when time goes by and you forget details and the little things that if you had that app that you can probably just fill in as you go and it's fresh and you have all of that documented in real time.
Yes.
So I think that's great. But can someone buy an activation or a login on their own?
Yes.
Okay.
And we do that because we also help people who are in stalking cases.
Right.
And so it may not be appropriate for them to go to a domestic violence shelter if domestic violence is not the case. We see this often. We've had universities purchase licenses for us because a student is being stalked and they need to document. Stalking is one of the hardest cases for law enforcement to prove. And so it makes it much easier to gather all that evidence, especially because we're geolocating, date and time stamping.
Right.
So you can see.
This would have helped me big time because I was tracked to the courthouse. I didn't know there was a tracker in my car and he saw that I was doing something at the courthouse. So something like this definitely would have helped because I logged everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I definitely want to talk to you more about that to get Greyson's Choice maybe involved. How do you get your partners?
So right on the website, anyone can apply. There's a link for partner programs and they can go in. They can request a demo first if they'd like.
Okay.
It's really easy. There's a calendar and you can just pick your date and time. If you know you're ready, there's the application right on the website. You fill out the application. There is a minimum 10 license purchase to begin with. So there's a $300 investment in the front end. But after that, you only pay for what you need.
Okay.
So there's no minimum after that.
Okay. So if you need an 11th, you can get just one more.
Yep. Exactly. Okay. And so part of the application is filling out information about your organization. If you are a nonprofit, you upload your tax exempt certificate so we can make sure we don't charge you any sales tax.
Okay.
And then once we receive your application, then we go through a pretty thorough vetting process to make sure that you're a legit organization. Right. You're not some creep calling for people to come into the basement for therapy sessions.
You never know.
We have turned organizations away. We have released organizations once they've been a partner member if we see that they are not fulfilling their duties as their mission statement says.
Okay.
If we feel they are unethical in any way, shape, or form, they're not representing themselves properly, we have the authority to remove them from the partner program, and we have.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
How do people get the app? So they would contact you. Is anything needed tech-wise, a browser specific, Chrome? What do they need?
So any kind of browser, but we highly recommend that they use DuckDuckGo, especially if they're using a mobile device that they fear is being tracked. They can download the DuckDuckGo app browser right on their phone. It's free. And then from there, DuckDuckGo does not store any history in the phone. And at the bottom of the button, there's a little flame and they can tap that and it wipes everything. So it's it's a really secure browser. We've turned a lot of district attorneys' offices onto that. Yeah. And you can, if you're using a computer and you're using a Chrome browser, there is an extension, the DuckDuckGo extension that privatizes everything on there and makes sure that everything is really secure. So we are all about the folks at DuckDuckGo.
So you would go on DuckDuckGo and then on that browser from there, go to the link.
Yep. Or download the extension or the app, depending on the device that you're using. Yeah.
Gotcha. And can you save it to your phone as an app so they can just press a button? Okay.
DuckDuckGo is an app. It's a browser app, just like you have a Safari app or a Chrome app. You would have a DuckDuckGo app. And yeah, you just download it and then you search for everything in there. And it will show you how secure sites are and how many trackers there are on every website, all kinds of really interesting information. So
this would be great for therapists that have clients that are domestic violence victims so that they can help their clients get the accountability they need. You could go to so many different avenues here, not only the nonprofits and the legal and the therapy and the doctors. There's so many people that can benefit from this.
Yeah. And full disclosure, we do not receive any kind of compensation from DuckDuckGo. I have known people that work there. I have vetted the company myself. And I use the app myself. So it's just something that myself and my co-founder have found to be a really good tool. And when we find something that we really like, we're not afraid to go out there and say, hey, use it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Word of mouth is the best way.
Yep.
So what has been the feedback so far from either partners, victims? What are some things that you can tell me that people that have actually used Victim's Voice, what have they said?
We don't get a whole lot of feedback from users, only because it's a sensitive topic. A lot of people don't like to out themselves. We have gotten a few people, though, to give us a call, and they're usually very teary conversations to thank us so much that they wouldn't have been able to do what they did in court without it, that they really felt like it saved their life, the life of their child. We have had a few attorneys call us, and our response is always the outcome of the case is not really, it really doesn't matter to us, the outcome of the case. What matters to us were you able to use it as evidence? Was it helpful in you doing your job? And the response has always been an overwhelming yes.
That's great. That's what you're looking for, right? You want to actually make sure your product works effectively. Right?
Because we cannot determine the outcome of a case. There are so many variables. Are the attorneys ethical? Is the judge ethical? Is the case really what it presents itself to be? There's just so many different variables.
Right.
That is not what we can control. What we can control is, was it able to help collect all the evidence, compile it in one location, and help them do their jobs better? And was it used as evidence? Was it accepted by the courts as evidence?
Oh, yes. True. So is there an instance where they wouldn't accept something aside from the audio video?
We have never had any complaints of that at all, ever.
Okay, good. I'm sure this is great for lawyers. They're probably ecstatic to have this help gather their evidence to win their case.
Yeah. And there's an evidence standard called the Daubert standard.
Okay.
There's the Daubert standard and the Frye standard. So Daubert is Daubert, Frye is Frye. And Daubert is really the gold standard. It's a 5-point test to whether or not expert testimony, whether it's in person or technical evidence, can be admitted. And so that was really the standard that we used. There were a lot of technologies out there. Blockchain was huge when we were first starting. That was the buzzword of tech, but we couldn't use it because it's not a time-tested, peer-reviewed technology that would be accepted as per the Daubert standard. So we had to use standards that both were secure enough, but also met that standard of evidence. So yeah, it was really, really tricky at first.
I bet, but it's a learning curve. I'm sure you're evolving too, like each year.
Yeah.
You're learning what to do, what not to do, and improving the software, the program.
Yep.
So what is next?
Yeah. So it seems like we're on the every 2-year cycle that we do more updates. And we have some exciting updates coming up in the next 2 years. So we've been testing some and we're still in the development phase of others. But
can you share any?
2025, one of the things that we'll be rolling out very soon for our partner members is the ability to create a promotional code that they would choose, they would make up, and then they would be able to give away a license for free for 30 days. Thus pre-vetting the user. And then after 30 days, if the user still wants to continue to use the tool, then they can either purchase a license on their own, or they can come back to the organization and say, I need an extension for a year, in which case then the organization could give them a license that they've paid for.
Got it.
Yeah.
How long is a license good for in general if someone bought it or was given?
It's good for a year.
1 year.
So a user has a year once they've activated it. And we do not do automatic renewals.
Okay.
We don't ask someone to put in a credit card and keep it on file.
Okay.
The partner members can when they're purchasing bulk licenses, but an individual, we do not do that. That financial trail may set off
What
alarm
does it
bells.
come up as on their credit card statement?
Abinra Incorporated.
And if you Googled that, does it say anything about any of that? About Victim's Voice?
It says we've developed Victim's Voice and Seek and Speak and all kinds of tools, but the URL that's being used is not related to any of those.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yep. And most people, when they hear Abinra, my husband says it sounds like a pharmaceutical drug. Ask your attorney if Abinra is right for you.
It actually really does. And maybe it is a drug because you're actually saving lives.
Yep.
That's great. I can't wait to see what else you have in store and what's coming after that. Technology is always evolving. So especially in this genre, I'm sure it's only going to grow from here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't wait for our listeners at Gray Minds to hear about this because I'm not sure I know anyone that has used it. And I think so many people that have reached out to me could really benefit from this because like I said, we all keep logs of evidence. That is the number one thing that lawyers suggest for victims of domestic violence, but specifically coercive control, which is a very insidious type of domestic violence and super hard to prove. So this will help make it a little easier.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share or should we just wait?
I would say keep your eye on our social media. All of our social media platforms are at Victim's Voice app.
Okay.
Because we have some exciting things coming out that will benefit our partner members and people who need access to the app.
Okay, great. We'll put all of that in our show notes so that people have the links and know where to go.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Sheri. I really appreciate you telling us all about the app and what you guys do. And I really look forward to learning more.
Thank you.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. If there's someone that you want to hear from on this podcast, please feel free to send me an email. Or if you would like to be a guest, please reach out at ali@graysonschoice.org. If you would like to continue to hear our podcast, please consider donating at graysonschoice.org. Any amount helps to fund our mission to help protect our children.